Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 48 of the Empowering Industry Podcast. It's World Water Day. It's one of my favorite days to celebrate. So welcome and thanks for being here. I'm your host, Charli Matthews, and I'm joined by my co-host, Bethany Womack.
Hey, Charli. Hey to everyone that's watching this, listening to this. Thanks for choosing us like you do every Monday. Leave us a rating and review, comments on the YouTube, wherever you are. Just let us know what you think about the show. This week, just like every week, we're going to cover something from social media, cover the news from the Empowering Pumps and Equipment newsletter, and then connect you with an awesome industry influencer. But I know you had a really awesome week that I know you want to talk about, Charli. So tell me what you had going on this week.
Well, I went down to Gulf Shores with the family and it was awesome. But I do have to say that every time we go to the beach, there has to be pump talk. So we go down there and you see these different distributors and different, gas places. I don't know how you say this other than, you see the flaring on the side of the road. It's amazing to just go on a vacation and then you see all of the different pump talk along the way. And now my family points it out. I don't have to point it out to them.
So they should listen. They should go back and listen to that interview with Larry, because now every time I start my dishwasher, I think to myself, ooh, pump talk. Look at all these pumps involved in making my dishwasher work.
That's right. So I always joke because I can't go to the beach without pump talk. But it was beautiful. I mean, a much needed getaway, especially like the reminder of a year ago being down there with COVID and being back down there and being like, you know what? It's okay. We can go to the beach and we're not getting, slammed by the media for, being on the beach. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun and the weather was fabulous. And I did have to come home a little early because we left Luca here with my brother. Thank you, Corey, for watching him. And I missed him and I was ready to come back to get my snuggles with Luca. So I guess I'm a dog mom now. And yeah, so
added to the list of things that quarantine, COVID, whatever has made you. Dog mom.
That's right.
Never thought that would happen.
Yeah. And so one other thing I wanted to mention is Franklin Electric. They highlighted me for their campaign on Women's Month, right? And Women's History Month. And, just thinking about what kind of history do you want to make was really impactful. But some of the things that were mentioned and to see the industry kind of come behind that post and engage with it and comment, it means a lot because that's what I was trying to accomplish with using my voice and bringing attention to the industry and making sure that we talk about all these different things about leadership and what it really means. So just wanted to give them a little shout out because it really did touch my week or touch me this week. So what about you, Bethany? How was your week?
Well, first, the Franklin Electric post was awesome. I was really proud of you. I'm always proud of you when I see other people sharing your stuff.
Yes, it's like I didn't have to do it myself.
Her. Yeah. I didn't have to create that graphic. That's amazing.
That's right.
No, but my week was good. It's spring break here, I'm sure, like it is everywhere. And so our schedules have been a little different. Our babysitter was out and we really missed her a lot. But we got to see a lot of family that came. I had my aunt and uncle came to see us on Tuesday and my parents were here to help watch the boys. And it's just, a good week at home. And my dad and Bowen planted tomatoes in the backyard, which just sounds so little. Gosh. But it's the sweetest thing. And I remember doing that with my dad when I was little. And so watching him doing it with my kid just gives me all the feels and was, made my week. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And then you'll get to pick them together. It'll be just great. So.
And I'm the only one in my house that likes tomatoes. So the haul is all mine.
That's right. They're making up just for you.
And, to grow a garden, you need water, and you talked about it being World Water Day. If you're listening to this on Monday, it is currently World Water Day, March 22nd. And, that's something that's really important to our industry, and we're excited to share it with all of you.
Yeah. And if you want to, take a look on the website, worldwaterday.org, excuse me, the theme of World Water Day is valuing water. And I mean, we could go into this in so many different ways, but, water means different things to everybody. And I will really want to know what it means to you. So there's a lot of different ways that we can, know that, bring you on here to have you talk about it. You can mention us. But I'll just say that we want to hear from you, right? And what it means to you. So what does it mean to you, Bethany, like the water part?
Up until like a month ago, I think I just didn't. It's one of those things you don't think about a ton, other than obviously working with empowering pumps and when we talk about water. But so many places in Texas like didn't have water. And so we were like filling our bathtubs, like holding water. So we would have water to flush the toilets, like those kind of things. And it really, you don't know how much you appreciate something until even the threat of it being taken away is there. And so, right now for me, it means a lot because I'm thinking about like getting water for my kids' formula that I'm mixing up, and like giving
Is it
water
clean?
yeah, like all of these things. And so, why am I so emotional on today's podcast? Like everything, but it
It
meant a
matters.
lot to me. And on World Water Day on the .org website, they talk about how different people, it means different things no matter like depending on where they live and if it's part of their livelihood or their cultural practices and all those kind of things. And I think it just like really crystallized how our life does revolve around water.
It really does. And it's special to my heart. And I think the pump industry really did put it front and center for me. And just seeing that, you definitely need pumps to have water and all of the different things. But it's really about those people and the people behind, bringing that to work for us and to provide for us that clean water. Somebody had to figure out what was going on in Houston, right? And get the water back.
Yeah.
So the power back to run the water. But, for me, it touched my life. I see like so many people around the world don't have access to water. We have a problem with water scarcity, and it's going to get worse if we don't focus on it. And so one of the things I do is look for different ways that I can support this. And we did this most recently with the campaign Buy Pumps, Save Lives. And I think it's super cool because, as you can just imagine this pump going into a community and the whole community coming together to build something, and that's their life, right? In order to build businesses and just family activities, right? Like imagine all the things that like kayaking or boating or just like staring at a lake, they don't have this. And so looking for ways to shine the light and highlight what does water mean to you? And it means all that to me, right? From our drinking water, it brings us our health and helps us think, to, making sure that my kids have something fun to do that's outside and awesome. And I don't have to worry about them, getting some type of disease from the water. Those are the things that I think about on a regular basis when I talk about water.
So one last thing before we get off of World Water Day. The campaign really wants you to share, what it means to you, like Charli said. So if you're sharing on social media, use the hashtag World Water Day and hashtag water2, the number 2, me, and let us know what it means to you and tag us at Empowering Pumps so we can see the message as well, and use the hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast and, say thank you. So thank you to everyone that helps me get clean water so I don't have to worry and do all of these things like Charli was just saying.
I love it. And I loved how you did that little 2 as on the screen.
2
awesome.
for I guess I should try to do it backwards. This is riveting things for people listening to just the audio, I'm sure, but incentive to go check us out on YouTube, right?
That's right. Okay.
Let's
get social.
Let's get social. Nope.
What's the news?
Okay, I'm going to figure out the soundboard one of these days.
Well, try it again. Let's do it again.
Well, I accidentally hit X on it, and then it deleted it out.
Okay,
I'm sorry. We're going to get social right now, and I've been thinking about this, and I've decided that Let's Get Social can also be something that I see on social media that I want to share with you. And what I saw this week on social media that I think you all should know is Charli wrote a blog.
I totally did.
It's awesome. And before we get to that awesome blog, I'm going to share with you all about what it means to be a leader and how you can use your voice to be a leader. We want to share with you our virtual meetups that we have happening.
Right. So the Empowering Women's Meetup is going to be Wednesday, April 14th. It's every second Wednesday at 11 Central Time. And then the Empowering Brands Meetup is going to be Tuesday, April the 20th, every third Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Time. So register, get ready to turn on your camera, introduce yourself, have some fun with us. It's one of my favorite times of the week for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. On that note, I do want to give a shout out. Okay. So anytime that you want to be mentioned on the show, all you have to do is mention us at Empowering Pumps or using the hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast. And so somebody, listened to me and did that. And thank you very much. First of all, let's talk about Matt. Matt, who was editing the podcast while Bethany was out. Shout out, Matt. He starts his Mondays watching us on YouTube. And I just think that that's awesome. I mean, first of all, we're on YouTube. But it was just really fun. Matt, thanks for, creating that image that you sent out on social, showing kind of where your space is and what you're listening to. Another
I think
shout
it's really
out.
cool that he still listens to the show, even though he's,
That's right.
I'm back he's not producing it. It's so fun.
Well, he was a fan before. And so I know because he would talk to me about all of the different podcasts and he would give encouraging words, and even watching and listening to the Empowering Women podcast that we have and commenting on it. So Matt, he's one of those guys that we want to keep around us. So
yeah.
Okay. So another shout out goes to North South Supply. They are a family owned and operated wholesale distributor of irrigation, well, and pool supplies. Established in 1978 in Vero Beach. Vero Beach. I don't know if that's the way that you say this. So if you're from there, I'm sorry. So Vero Beach, Florida. But I just think it's really cool that, they are promoting the podcast and sharing it when it makes sense to them and it's relevant to them. And so I really liked seeing that. And I hope that more people will share and, link back to other people's podcasts. We have seen that. We've seen you, sharing the post and sending it out, but go ahead and mention us so we know that, you want the shout out on the podcast too.
Yeah. Okay. So today, like I mentioned, in this segment, we're going to talk about the blog that Charli wrote, Taking the Responsibility of Leadership. It's on our Empowering Brands website. The link will be in the show notes for you to click on and for you to read. It's a really great article. And I just, Charli, why don't you start by telling us why you wrote this? What's the point of the blog?
Yes. So I was just looking at all the different things that have been happening, and that is me being featured or being on a podcast or interviewing somebody, and really all these meaningful things that maybe I forgot I said, but revisiting and kind of listening to this message go out. And a lot of it comes from that Leadership Launchpad project that we went through. And it's kind of top of mind of what kind of impact do I want to make and what is leadership? And so, I think we talked about it on the maintenance community's career fair when I was in the mentoring panel. And then also we did a leadership panel. And we're like, what is leadership? And I know I've posed this question to people constantly. But when you think about it, you think, okay, it's a choice. And I agreed with that. I think Rob was telling you, it is a choice. And so I want to go a little bit further from that and say it's a responsibility. And that's because that choice to be a leader, you can make it. And then when things get tough, then you're like, okay, I might need to pass this off to somebody. Why am I here doing this? Kind of comes into play. Really like the why and understanding your why. That takes you to that responsibility piece, that piece of saying, you know what, I'm willing to build my business around this. I'm willing to stand out. I'm willing to use my voice to talk about this particular thing in leadership style. So when I think about that and leadership and all of the different people out there who I say you can be a leader, right? What are you wanting to take responsibility for? What are you wanting to every day be a leader for? So I'm interested to hear that from everybody else. But I think it's important that we think about that and think about what we want to be doing every day, because that's what's going to help you be that leader.
Well, and something you said about, leadership is a choice, which then leads to responsibility, really resonates with me, because I think one of the most powerful moments in my life is when I realized, like, someone told me, like, you don't have to do that. Like, you have a choice. And I can frame everything in my life that way. And it would be bad if I chose not to wash the dishes ever, there would be consequences of that, but it's a choice. I'm free to make that choice,
That's right.
And so I think when I can and so that's a message I can get behind in leadership, is that, it's a choice and I can choose to make it. And most of the time, the answer is yes, I'm choosing to do this because I can see the positive benefits in it. And so, like, I appreciate you making the choice to be a leader and coming in and leading our team every day, and I've really seen that in you. And so it's fun.
Well, I think, I think the big thing here is if you don't have full buy-in, if you're, trying to be a leader because they want you to be a leader, or, you're leading in a space that, you're not really passionate about, or you don't feel that you have the tools to do that, you're not going to be as successful, and you're probably going to burn out. And so, I love talking about the, me on the stage in a gray suit, because I was trying to fit in with a crowd that I thought this is how I can lead. I have to be a part of this. And it's just not the case. It's, being your true, authentic self is so much better than trying to be the leader that somebody else wants you to be. So taking responsibility for yourself and leading, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, it's just so clear. And it's amazing to see, like, doing that and, like, starting to say the things that need to be said. That's where the impact is. That's where you wake up and you're like, let's talk about this today. This is going to be great, So.
Which is a great lead in to your first point that you talk about in the blog, using your voice. And so, this is about, you can use your voice to express yourself, and engage with others and, say what you need to say, but then you can also use it for other people. So, like, bringing in people that are underrepresented, and that could mean, diversity in cultures or age. But then also, like, within our industry, it could mean diversity in departments, like different what your job is for the company, whether it's sales, engineering, et cetera, those kind of things. So, like, really thinking and using your voice with the responsibility of speaking up for the other people who aren't there to lead.
Yeah. And this is so important. And I think it's the second point, right, is to use a group voice and think about this as looking at the group that you're in, and everybody looks the same, and you're talking to the same people, and you're saying the same things over and over again. You're not really getting the best results from that. You're going to, just be doing the same things over and over. And so I think we have to figure out a way to stop limiting the people that are at the table, the people that are in this group or that group. We've talked about cross training and things like that in the past, where we do let some people come over and learn my work here. But I think it's more than that. It's really about listening to other people, even though you disagree with them, and taking that and figuring out, okay, where is some common ground? Where can we innovate? Where can we collaborate on these things? It's not saying I've got to believe just like this person over here. So I think bringing those voices together is just so important.
Agreed. And part of that, once you have them in the room, is like getting people to speak, to talk. And, not everyone is an extrovert that has a podcast and, likes to interview people. Some people aren't comfortable talking in front of people or talking in a group setting. And so you give us some tips for getting their voices out. And some of the fun ones that I really liked were, just asking people what they care about. Just straight up, like, outside of work, what do you do for fun?
And my line. Did you steal that from me?
I did, because I heard it on the podcast. But then I think the important part, which you do, that you do it without saying, that's important that people know, the follow-up to that is you have to ask the question to hear the answer, not ask the question to respond to what they say, like to really listen and absorb what they're saying. And when you do that, people feel more comfortable and start talking. Or you could do games. You talk about games and participation games and that kind of stuff. But it's just at the crux of it, making everyone feel like their voice is allowed to be there and like their voice is valued.
I think
not
another
easy,
thing
but
there,
important.
Yeah. And I think another thing there is you, as the leader of the conversation or the group or whatever, your job is to look for people who are being quiet and they aren't talking, and ask them for their perspective. Pull them into you. Some people may need more time to process, right? So if you ask a question in the early part of the meeting, maybe they don't get around to kind of okay, this is what I want to say to that until maybe later on. And so provide that and say, well, what do you think about this later on in the call? And I think that's really important to note. The other thing that I really like, and it's just really fun to talk about for a marketing company, is that marketing matters. And we talk about how sales and marketing need to work together. They need to feed off each other. They need to, create these ideas together. How in the world is marketing going to know what to send out if they're not involved in the timelines or the objectives or understand the business? So letting marketing in the room, bringing their ideas, having conversations, talking about strategy, this is going to be key for the future. And for sales, for marketing, for business, definitely marketing needs to be involved. So I really like that topic for sure.
Yeah. And when I first got into the industry and, I was at the Turbo show in Houston, one of some of the really good marketers that I knew that were amazing marketers, the one I can think of is Andy Martin. He was always there, always happy. He's the marketing person, but he's in the booth. He's working with all the salespeople. He was really understanding their process. And I think that's what, I really learned from him, that you have to understand the sales and understand the product to be a good marketer. And so I really liked that point in, how to be a good leader, is understanding that all of those work together.
Yes, absolutely.
And your last point that you talk about is that it's important to look at marketing as if you were a buyer, which lets me talk about my favorite subject for marketing in general is empathy. I think that's the number one thing you can do as a marketer, is to really understand people, understand their pain points, understand where they are and what they need. And so that's if you're leading a process, that's going and pretending that you are the customer and you're Googling things to see where you show up. You're seeing how the process works, what forms you have to fill out. Because part of being a good leader, and I wrote this down as a quote from your blog so I could say it right, part of being a leader is knowing both the questions and the answers. So being able to anticipate that, just really good advice to take with you.
I love it. I love it. So one of the things, just to sum everything up, is that leadership launchpad project and the podcast that I did. So if you didn't get enough about leadership here and you want to, really dive in deep of what Charli's leadership looks like and thoughts about it, you can listen to that. We'll include the link in the show notes. But at the end of the day, if you think I want to be a leader, just remember to tell yourself that you are a leader, and that's really all, right? You have to believe it, and then everybody else can believe it as well. And I know you're a leader, and if you're having those thoughts and want to continue that journey, feel free to reach out to me. I love talking leadership, as you know. So yeah, call me.
Awesome. Okay. Now I think we should move into the news. Baton 500 today.
Yes, you
feeling
are.
Good. Okay, so this is where we're going to preview something coming out for the Empowering Pumps and Equipment newsletter. If you're not signed up for that, do it. The link's in the show notes, and then you get a nice couple of emails to your inbox every week to see what's going on in the industry. We're going to start out this week with our person of the week that we want to highlight is Leah Freeberg. She's a senior strategist with Destrier Communications. And her profile is in the show notes as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I wanted to point out, she is part of the Maintenance and Reliability Network. But when we asked her, what is some advice you want to give, she let us know about this LinkedIn group that she's a part of, and that those has really helped her in her work and provided career advice and that type of thing. So we really wanted to give you this resource that she says, and I believe this, right? Any of these kind of communities and groups, and you'll see more and more of this happening. But being able to give that as a resource to people, I thought was really cool.
Yeah. And I think, on that note, it's all about finding the right one that's the right fit for you. And, maybe you're not in maintenance and reliability, but there are other options out there and other groups that you can be a part of that are really beneficial. And I liked that she highlighted that for sure. So add her on LinkedIn. That's in her profile as well on our website. And then if you know someone that should be a person of the week feature on our site, please nominate them. It's super easy. Just put their name and their email and we'll take care of the rest.
Yes. I love reaching out and telling people that they've been nominated for Industry Person of the Week. It's amazing. They're all always shocked. They're always shocked. And
I'm imagining you as
wow.
the publishing clearinghouse check. Like Charli shows
Right.
up in their inbox and is like, here is your $5,000 in
Yes.
perpetuity. I mean, your nomination for
Yes.
person
I mean,
of
we're
the
going to
week.
talk about you and say how awesome you are.
And it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get to the news. The first item is understanding and avoiding pump cavitation. And I picked this one because I love talking about pump cavitation because I get it, understand it. But this article from Surumi, one of our partners, Mike, an application engineer, wrote it for us. And it's really an overview of cavitation. So we all know, if you don't, let me tell you, it's a destructive issue. It tears things up. Even the highest quality pumping equipment, it is going to wreak havoc on that. This occurs when air bubbles are generated inside the pump because of a particular pressure drop or, flowing liquid resulting in cavitation. So let's just let them explain that a little bit more clearly. So the article—
That was pretty good.
Okay, thanks. The article goes in to explain it this way. There are two types of cavitation: suction and discharge. They also talk about what the warning signs are. And I can tell you that I know this. It's a noisy pump. Okay. It sounds like, pumping rocks or something like that.
I loved that in the article. It was like, you cannot miss it. If you hear it, you know it.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So, what can be done about this, and the avoidable outcomes, right? So I think that this is something that everybody needs to know in the pump industry is all about cavitation and what that means. So check out this article, links in the show notes. What about you, Bethany? Do you have one for us?
Yeah, I have an article from Cornell Pump, who's a new partner. We're happy to share their story with us that they sent us. So the article from Cornell Pump is Remote Monitoring Advantages in Mining. And so they talk about new and innovative solutions coming to the mining industry. So through IIoT, their process, you can have alerts, reports, monitoring, and modeling for the mining industry, which previously hasn't been as readily available. And some of the advantages of Cornell's innovative co-pilot pump monitoring system are remote access. Sorry, guys. Okay.
This is what happens on video. That happened to me earlier. Like, I should just be able to take her water on here, but it seems weird. Okay.
I got one. Okay. Some of the advantages of Cornell's innovative co-pilot pump monitoring system are you can have remote access, fuel monitoring, planned maintenance, reduced downtime, greater energy efficiency, business analytics, greater safety, remote support, and more. They have a list of 12 different benefits of their program that they go in detail about each of the 12 things. So you can really understand what the benefits are of this new technology that they're sharing with us. And you should definitely check it out, especially if you're in the mining industry. And again, thanks, Cornell Pump, for sharing it with us.
Yeah, it's so great to see innovation in the mining industry. We talk about that a lot and needing it and wanting it. So this is excellent.
Yeah. And now we're going to move into the industry interview. This is a segment where Charli goes out and finds a leading person in the industry and brings them here to share their story with all of us. And I think it's one of the tenets of her leadership that she wants to help share positive stories in the industry and give us all a tool to help better us in our career, which is why she has a great person for the interview today. So who do you have, Charli?
I do. It was a great interview of one of my favorites, Richard D'Amato, who is the CEO and president of Brown and I knew I was going to mess up something there. Brown and Caldwell. So I have a great interview for you today. Richard D'Amato, he is the CEO and president of Brown and Caldwell. And he is a senior executive with 28 years of experience. He's worked in operation, maintenance, consulting, process engineering, design, focused on developing client solutions around environmental, water, wastewater, and infrastructure. And he just has a passion for water and diversity and inclusion. And I actually met him on a panel, and you'll hear this in the video, but a panel for, women in water at WEFTEC. And I was like, I have to know more of this man's story. I want to know what he stands for, why he's here, what he's trying to accomplish. So you'll hear a lot of that as well. And it was just, really great to have him say yes to talking on World Water Day. And I think you're really going to enjoy the interview.
That's awesome. I'm really excited. So without further delay, here's your interview. Rich, welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So tell us what you do. I mean, I met you kind of randomly through a video chat when we were at WEFTech, but tell people kind of what your day job is and what it looks like every day.
Well, great. Yeah. Well, first off, Brown and Caldwell is a 100% employee-owned company that does 100% environmental. So what that means is we do water projects, wastewater projects, environmental cleanup projects, permitting, things like that. It's a great company. We're a mid-sized company, and being employee-owned really, we feel, allows us to be a purpose-driven company. And our purpose is to have positive impact on our people, our clients, the communities we serve, and of course, our environment. And I'm lucky in that I get to be the leader. I'm the CEO for Brown and Caldwell. And my primary role is making sure our people have what they need to deliver to our clients, making sure I understand what our clients' needs are, setting strategy, allocating resources, and again, all focused on having positive impact.
Yeah, one of the things that I saw, that employee owned, how is that different?
That's a good question. I think the main difference in employee ownership is if you think about every company has to be owned. And if you look at all the different stakeholders, and I just said it earlier in our purpose, we're really focused on our people, on our clients, and our environment. And because we're 100% employee owned, our people are our stakeholders too. That's who we are. And so we're very aligned around a purpose versus just out there to make money or to be the biggest company or the most global company. And what I really love about being employee owned is that we get to decide, the employees decide what's most important, how we want to spend our time, how we want to spend our money. And traditionally, we can take more of a longer term focus on what that looks like for us. And again, it's not about, again, traditional publicly traded markets, you have investors that don't even know what your business is, and they're expecting to put some money down on your company and make a return. So it's all about the profit. And for us, again, the profit for us, we want to make a fair profit, but that profit gets reinvested back into the company, into our people, to support our purpose of having positive impact. So it's not about making money for us, although we have to be really good at making sure we make a fair profit because we fund ourselves, right? But that we get to decide, do we work? We work with organizations like Engineers Without Borders and Water for People, and our folks like to give back in that way, and the company helps support that as well. So, it's just more holistic, I think, around the employee and our clients, and we don't have to worry about that outside stakeholder.
So I want to back up a minute because
Sure.
I want to talk about all the things that you just said. But before that, I want to get into how did you get into water and this focus? I know you've got a background in that, several different companies you've been with. Has it always been in you to kind of make that difference in water?
Always is I like to say I'm still not really sure what I want to be when I grow up. So I've been a lifelong learner. The short version of that story is I was really good in science and math and the STEM areas. And when I was younger, I just took the path of least resistance, honestly. So going to engineering school was the way to do it. And I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And a family friend said that I would have a much better chance of getting into med school as an engineer versus pre-med. So that's what I really started out with, just saying, hey, science and math, maybe I want to be a doctor. And so I went into civil engineering. And it was okay, but it really probably wasn't until my sophomore, junior year that I started taking the water classes, water chemistry, water resources, water treatment, wastewater treatment, that I really figured out I had a passion for that. It was really interesting to me. And, back in those college days, my big thing is we're continually increasing manufacturing and new products and things like that. And that's, almost against the environment in some ways. And so what could I do to contribute to allow us to progress and to make these new chemicals and things like that? but protect our environment. And I got really interested in the water treatment side of things, the wastewater treatment side, and developing bacteria to remove nasty chemicals from water and clean it up. So that's kind of how it took place. And then I went to grad school to focus just on water and, again, the biological treatment side of things. And I really geeked out and got into to the biological aspect of it, but thought it was a great way for me to spend a career and help the environment, because I love recreating with water.
So I have to ask you, because you're talking about these different chemicals in the water, I have to ask you about PFAS and kind of what you're dealing with it, how you're dealing with it. What's your view, if you can answer that question? Because it's a chemical we use regularly, but it's getting into our water.
Yeah, Charlie, at Brown and Caldwell, one of the things that makes us different is we have we're also research oriented. And so from a technical standpoint, we're consistently looking at new and innovative ways to take things out of water or to improve efficiency in water treatment. And we call PFAS would fit into what we call emerging contaminants. And so these are new contaminants, new problems that are arising that we're going to have to deal with as an industry at some point. And it includes PFAS. It includes things maybe like microplastics, if you've heard about microplastics in water.
Yes.
And it's in the gray area right now, where we know it's a concern. We know that it can be bad for us in certain amounts, but it's not heavily regulated yet. And because of its concern, though, it is a lot of work's been being done around that. And so we're doing things around what is, helping our clients to quantify, what is the issue, working with regulators like EPA to define what is acceptable, what's not, what are the treatment methods. And so I think it's really early on in that stage of regulating and treating for this chemical. The interesting thing is right now, because they're so ubiquitous in the environment, the treatment methodologies are more focused on capturing it or containing it versus destroying it or being destructive and converting it into something less harmful. But again, we have some partnerships, and we're working on some things in our R&D lab in Nashville that would result in a destructive method for treating PFAS. So we got a great team of people working on it right now, and learning with our clients. We've actually won some projects recently with some large utilities that are, I would call them, they're more on the forefront of things. They're not being regulated yet, but they want to get ahead of it. They want to have a say in the matter in terms of defining what good looks like in terms of PFAS and how we should treat it. So that's definitely a hot topic right now, and we're right in the middle of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I feel like it does take the research and understanding of how we use it in our everyday lives. I mean, you talked about the microplastics, and I can remember learning about that, the microbeads in our like body wash. And, I'm just like, oh, I can't use that anymore. But, at the same time, you kind of want to use it. And, this is something that helps you with your body. Same as like some of the coatings and things that we use. It makes life easier. So where's the give and take? And I think that's what we have to really understand. So I'm glad to know that y'all are working on that.
Working on it, yeah. It's interesting too, Charlie, in that I had a professor when I was, again at Clemson University. I did grad school down there, and he always told me, that we're trying to solve the problems of the past, things that we did 20 years ago that we weren't thinking about 20 years ago, what the impact would be. And I think we've come a long way. We're thinking more about sustainability in the future. But again, I don't know if we're, I think we got to really look hard at the way we do things. Take chemicals, for example. It's not that difficult for somebody to make a new chemical up and put it out on the market. Like, we don't have to prove that it's safe, so to speak. Is that the right way we should regulate the introduction of new chemicals into our environment? Maybe not. Maybe there's a different way. Maybe there should be some pre-testing, those kind of things. And I don't have the exact numbers, but
great question.
10,000 new chemicals a year, and anybody can start to manufacture them. And it's only when it becomes a problem, where someone says, hey, this might be causing, health impacts to people or to the environment, then we retroactively kind of pull back and take a look at it. So I'd like to see us do a little bit more, forefront thinking and thinking about the impacts and how can we mitigate those up front through the design and the formulation process versus, okay, now it's out there and we got a problem, let's fix it.
Yeah, that's so great. And I do think that we are changing as a society and looking at it a little bit differently, like you said, with the sustainable eye. Well, I mean, I feel like anytime we talk about water, I have to kind of bring up, as we do different charities, you talked about Engineers Without Borders. I think there's Plumbers Without Borders too. How do you decide? There's so many different charities and organizations that you can work with. How do you decide, kind of who you partner with in that?
That's a really good question, and it's timely. And I could go in a lot of different directions. And I think where I'll start, Charli, is there's a major paradigm shift happening within businesses in the United States right now. And I've even heard people say capitalism's under attack. And capitalism was all about making money, and businesses were created to make money and to make shareholders, their returns on their investments. And for the longest time, things like social responsibility and environmental responsibility, that was left to the local governments, to government, to NGOs, and to nonprofit organizations. And in fact, maybe 15, 20 years ago, a lot of businesses said, hey, we don't want to bring that into the workplace. I mean, let them deal with that and lets us focus on our core competency. And what we're starting to see now is with ESG. Are you familiar with the concept of ESG, environment, social, and governance?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
People, investors, employees, communities now, they care about the non-financial impacts that companies are having. And we feel that business now has a responsibility to be socially and environmentally responsible. And we're starting to see that uprising and that pressure from the investors as well. So at Brown and Caldwell, our legacy has been, like I said, our purpose is to have positive impact, to give back to the communities that we serve. So we got a little bit of a head start, but we know we can be better as well. And so one of the things that we're doing right now is we're creating a foundation that's focused on having positive impact. And we're right now in the startup of this thing. So I don't have a lot of answers, but we're defining the type of causes and the type of impact that we want to have. And of course, it's going to be around water and the environment. But if you look at our company across, we're 1,700 employees, 53 offices across the United States, and we're primarily US and Western Canada. Every one of our offices, because of our purpose and because of the way our people have this passion to give back, we're all doing things locally already in our local communities. So again, with this BC Foundation, we feel that we can have a more multiply the impact that we're providing and giving back. And right now, two of our long-term partners have been Engineers Without Borders and Water for People. And those are two great organizations that are focused around bringing clean drinking water and sanitary services to disadvantaged countries and communities that don't have access to these basic things that we all have here in the United States. And our people get really excited about that, and for Water for People, a lot of what we do is we help raise funds. Their model is they have a sustainable model where they go to different parts of the world where they're trying to implement these projects, and they partner with these communities and these local governments. We do have some opportunities for employees to go there and help, but most of it is we do fun things to help raise money to help fund what they're doing. And like a lot of times in our offices here I'm in Denver, our Denver office, we do this thing called the brouhaha, and we have clients and we have employees that like to brew their own beer. And we have a beer brewing contest and a tasting contest, and people have to pay to take a taste, and they're donating all the proceeds for Water for People. And so you take that and you say, oh, well, if you raise a couple $1,000s, it's not a big deal, but then multiply it by 53 offices and multiply it by 5 or 6 times a year that we do that. So it's a great way for people to engage and have positive impact without having to, make a more major commitment. Like Engineers Without Borders, for example, we may actually send employees overseas to one of these communities where they're actually, on the ground helping people to build the infrastructure and to train people. That's a little bit more bigger commitment for someone to make, to go somewhere for 2 weeks and sometimes more than a month. We send people. So So those are two areas, but again, we do a
Yeah,
lot of different
I'm
things.
fascinated with it.
Yeah, they're great. And
Yeah, I'm always looking because I'm always looking, to figure this out because I see so many great organizations, but Water for People probably touches me because, I have been trying to raise money for um, a charity. I guess it's a charity, what you would call it, but a trip over to Uganda for people to, install the pump and to see this come to life more recently in Senegal. But there's all kinds of different places that need water, and so finding an organization that you can kind of constantly fund or be a part of, I think that is what I'm looking for just for my business, similar to what you're doing with the foundation. You want to know that have regular campaigns to push towards this project, and people that are doing it already
yeah,
and know exactly how to do it. So I'm excited to hear more about that, and it sounds fascinating. This idea. It's not really an idea. It's a strategy, really, about how to give back and make it part of your business plan.
yeah, I think that's what it is. Like I said, it's always been part of us, and but again, it's things have changed, and if you don't change, you're not going to grow as a company. And so again, we feel good about who we are and where we've been, but we're not perfect, right? We have to continually improve, and we have to be better. But things like again, social responsibility and environmental responsibility, they're core to our being of who we are. And the thing that's really cool about it, though, Charlie, is that it just makes really good business sense, right? Take diversity, inclusion. Um, what boardroom would you go to today and ask a question in a board to say, is D&I important to your business? Like, who would say no? Like, everybody says yes, but it's really
Right.
easy. It's really easy to say the right words. And so what we look for is the actions, right? What our people look for in us is they're like, we don't want to hear you say the words. We want to see what you're doing. How are we making a difference? How are we truly investing? But I believe that if you don't pay attention, that you're going to fall behind. And on top of it, if you just take D&I again, for example, I mean, it's proven. I mean, it's a known fact that diverse teams outperform non-diverse teams. And so if you're a leader in a business and someone came to you and said, you can outperform your competitors by 15 to 20% if you do X, like, why wouldn't you do X? I mean, that's what I don't understand. But there's people that maybe don't feel that way or don't believe it. So number one, we believe that it helps our business. It helps us serve our clients better. Of course, it's the right thing to do, right? And it's part of who we are. But there's a real business advantage to doing it. So we want to do everything we can to make sure that we're being as strong as we can in those areas. And again, we're not perfect. We got a lot of room to grow in areas. And so, but we're working on it, right? And we're involving our people as part of the solution in that as well.
Yeah, and I like how you talked about how you have to take action. You can't just talk the talk. And that's where I met you. I met you at WEFTech in a Woman in Water, meeting. You asked a question, and I'm like, "What is he doing here? I want to know more about him." And I think it's that. Um, advocacy for women and your participation. That's the example that we want to set for companies. And you're setting that example for your organization, and now becoming a leader in that space, just because you took the initiative to be there to learn, like, what does this look like?
Yeah.
What does diversity, equity, and inclusion mean? What does that even look like in business? And so we are at the stage of figuring out a way of how we can create action that makes an impact. I think it's hard sometimes in our space for women to, be our own advocates. It seems kind of like we're bragging. We don't like to brag, but it's so much better when you have that male advocacy around you that can support you. And so, what have you seen? I guess from then, that was back. I guess last October.
Yeah.
What have you seen as far as changes or conversations around this?
Yeah, it's a great question. And in all these different areas, I like to tell people that, 2020 for me, I was on a mission to listen. There were a lot of different things going on. And, again, at our company, our goal, Brown and Caldwell, we do things differently. We brand things differently. So at Brown and Caldwell, we don't talk about diversity and inclusion. We talk about balance and belonging, right? We want to create a balanced organization where everybody feels like they belong and they can reach their full potential. And so that journey for us has been creating employee network groups, right? So we have a woman in engineering employee network group. We have a community of color networking group. We have a professional parents networking group. We have before COVID, we had this started, but with a virtual employee network, and these are affinity groups where people of like-mindedness can get together and talk about what they want to see, what they need, what they're experiencing. But what's been great about it is these aren't exclusive to just the people. Like, you don't have to have a child to be in the parents ENG, right? You might want to be like, hey, you know what? I manage 6 people and 5 of them have kids. What are they going through? And so these communities allow people to share their experiences, and it allows what we call our allies, our people that may not be in that group, to participate and listen in to understand that perspective. Because really, it's all about understanding, right? If we can all understand where each other's coming from, then you learn and you can do things. And so for me, especially as a leader and as a technical person, whenever there's a problem presented, you always feel like you have to solve it, right? And so someone says, hey, what are we going to do about D&I, balance and belonging? I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to tell them what our answer is. And I got really good feedback from folks that's like, these are complicated issues right now. Nobody expects you to have the answer, but they want to know you're listening, right? They want to know. And so for me, again, at the beginning, I told you I have to make strategic decisions on what we do. I allocate resources. Well, how can I do that if I'm not listening to the people, and trying to understand what does a day look like for a person of color at Brown and Caldwell? What does a day look like for a woman engineer, for a parent that's working at home right now that has 2 young kids that is trying to balance work and life? So that's been really helpful for us to understand. And then on top of that, we hired a head of balance and belonging, of diversity and inclusion at Brown and Caldwell. And that was a big decision for us because, again, think about health and safety. It's all of our jobs to provide a healthy and safety work environment. And so when it comes to balance and belonging, we're like, well, it's our jobs as leaders to create that. But we hire experts and professionals in health and safety to help us understand what are the right ways to do things. And we said, you know what, we should hire an expert that knows this. There's experts out there in D&I because we don't know everything. Engineers are a funny group of people. Engineers think they can do all these different things, right? So if you're the friendliest person, you can do sales. If you're super nice to employees, you should be the head of HR. If you know how to work a really cool macro on a spreadsheet, maybe you could be the head of, IT. And there's actually people that do that for a living that understand, that go to school. And so we brought our head of D&I in to look at what we were doing and to help us take that next step, to go to that next level. And one of the things, she's only been here for about 3 to 4 months, and she's already having impact. We're creating a diversity and inclusion council of about 15 employees. They're going to, their purpose is to help us understand all these different wants and needs and issues, and make recommendations on how we can take those right actions. What are those right actions? Because I just feel as leaders, we can't just sit at the top and say, we should do this, we should do that. I mean, I don't know what it's like to be a woman at Brown and Caldwell. So part of the reason I went to that was we were doing our own thing, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is an industry thing. Let me see what's going on here. And if you were to come on one of our calls for our women's ENG, there's going to be more than 3 men on those calls. I'll tell you that right now. I think that's what there was on the WEFTech. So any rate, I think the last thing I'd say on that.
And I wonder why that is. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say the last thing on that is like, as an industry in the technical field, we have a long ways to go on diversity and inclusion. We have decent statistics, and if you compare Brown and Caldwell to our peer companies, we actually do really well. And again, it's because it's who we've always been. We're getting more intentional about it. But if you compare our industry to the rest of the industries in the United States, we're really behind. right? And so part of what we're trying to do too is we want to do what's right for us and our people, but we also feel we have a responsibility that we can also help bring the industry up. So we're looking forward to doing the hard work there.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm so thankful that we do have you leading the way. I believe that you are, like you said, if you think about where you are in all companies, you may be behind, but in the water industry, you're ahead. Right. And so I always say that I'm in the pump industry, definitely has a lot of water there. But we are very, male dominated, especially in our C-suite. And we're looking for ways that we can bring people together to have conversations so that we can make that better. And it's just great to have an example. So I'm really thankful for you coming on here today and talking through that and giving our leaders a real example of how you can implement this within your own organizations, how you can reach out for help. One question I always ask is, is there anything else just kind of how, as we've been talking, that you're like, okay, I really want to tell this audience about?
Yeah, I think one thing, there'd be two things. The first one would just be that what's really cool about this industry is it's a really competitive industry. Most of that work that we go after, we have to compete for, and so we're competing against global companies that are the best out there. But what I love about it is that we all come together on certain things. So for example, when COVID came up, all the CEOs, we were getting together, we were talking to each other, we were sharing what we were doing, whether it was how we were communicating, what we were doing to help our people, our clients. We weren't afraid to do that, right? One day we're competing, hand-to-hand combat, going after the big job. The next day we might be partners, a 50-50 joint venture, working together to win a job together. Or, I may get a phone call or I may call a CEO at one of our competitors and say, hey, I got this problem I'm working on and I'm stuck, any advice? And so that's been really cool for me. I didn't know that about as much about the industry because, until I got into this role. And so I like that. And again, when it comes to D&I, there's a lot of other companies that want to do the right thing too. And we're sharing best practices. We're sharing what are we doing? Because again, we want to float all boats here. It's not about, putting somebody else down so that you can be better. This is what's right to do. The second thing I'll say is that we have to remember, and you can do both, but you have to remember what our core mission is. It's to deliver incredibly innovative and technical projects for our clients. So we're being asked to do and work on some of the most challenging projects in the United States around water supply, wastewater treatment, all those things. And that's what we do, right? And so but you can do that in a socially and environmentally responsible way. You don't have to, it's not one for the other, but we can't lose sight and swing the balance too much, right? There's been a lot of great awareness that's been brought up this year through the things that have happened the past year on the social front, the equity, the justice. And so we're taking advantage of that momentum and making change and doing things. But if we don't deliver good projects, we're not going to be in business, right? And so what I like is that we're doing at Brown and Caldwell is we're 100% focused on being that top technical firm to serve our clients' needs. But we're also, trying to do our part to be socially and environmentally responsible and make that positive impact.
Yeah, I love it. It's going to help the bottom line for sure, and it's the right thing to do. Yeah. So those two combinations is a win in business if you can keep that and keep your being true to your goals and your values and your mission within the company. So I just learned so much from you, Rich, and I'm just so excited that you joined me today. I look forward to seeing you again in the future. If anybody wanted to contact you, what's the best way that they can contact you?
For me personally, LinkedIn works really well. You can find me on LinkedIn. Our company is on LinkedIn. Our website is brownandcaldwell.com. It's all spelled out. And we're all over social media like everybody else. So we're not that hard to find if you Google us.
Awesome. Well, thank you again.
Okay. Thanks. I had a great conversation. Enjoyed being here.
And we're back. Charli, thanks so much for bringing Rich on the show. It was a great interview, especially on World Water Day. And I always love hearing the interviews that you pick for us.
Yeah, it's my favorite, sharing these stories. But this brings us to the end of the show. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Do us a favor, subscribe, rate and review the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you listen to it, and leave us a comment on YouTube so that we know you're there. Or be like Matt and take a picture and share it to your social media. It will make my day, I promise.
Me too. Always, you can reach us at Empowering Pumps using the hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast. We check that. We also check our email at podcast@empoweringpumps.com.
We'll be back every Monday with a new episode.
So until then, be empowering.
I feel empowered.
Yeah.
I totally do. That's awesome.
Okay.
Can I please have that to tell me like every morning, like I'm empowered?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to step over here. Can you hear the baby crying?
No, but go get the baby.
I'll need finish. To get him. Mark is watching him. I just need to tell Mark that I think the monitor is not off. And so now is a good point. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Everyone pour one out for Mark. Apparently he was in there. And
it definitely, I couldn't hear it either. So,
okay.
Hey, Jack. Okay. He was trying to say hello.
Yeah.